Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Uncommon Sense with Jose Negron. Now, for the benefit of those of you who are not familiar with the channel or watching this channel for the first time, the reason why it is called Uncommon Sense is because on this platform, we discuss everyday issues where we try to find logical solutions. But not everyone uses logic. For that reason, it is called uncommon sense. First of all, I want to let everybody know that I'm currently live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. I apologize for the rough start. I was having some technical difficulties about 15 minutes before I went on the air. But in any case, before I start, I want to give a huge shout out to all those who have subscribed to the channel. I want to give who follow me on social media. And I also want to give a huge shout out to all those who allow me to enter into your devices. Now, what I'm going to ask everyone to do, if you have not done so, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell notification to all. So, therefore, whenever I do prepare content, you will have the opportunity to either catch it live or catch it on the playback. Okay. Now, the topic for today's episode is how to resolve conflicts. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to give me a moment. I'm going to enter the link in the chat. Should anyone wishes, excuse me, just give me a moment. To join the panel. And I see here we got Keisha, who started it up. Good afternoon. I hope you're doing well today. Thank you very much for stopping by. To be perfectly honest, I was planning to air this stream tomorrow evening, but and that was due to the fact that I've been working a lot of overtime. Looks like there might be some days I might work overtime, other days not. So depending how the week goes, I'll try to maintain more or less my regular schedule. Now, what I'm going to do is, before we get into the topic, at times I like to share a positive message. Of course, some people may not know that I am a born again Christian, and I do believe in the Lord Jesus Christ. He is my Lord and Savior. I try to live my life as much follow this example as much as I can. So I'm going to see if I can share something. Hopefully my internet won't go jinky on me. Okay. Just give me a moment. Okay.
Isaiah 54, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. Tell yourself, Deuteronomy 28, I am the head and not the tail. Tell yourself, Psalm 18, the Lord is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer. Tell yourself, Psalm 20, some trust in chariots and some trust in horses, but we will remember the name of the Lord. Tell yourself, Romans 8:37, we are more than conquerors through him that loved us. Tell yourself, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Tell yourself, Job 13, though he slay me, yet will I trust in him. Tell yourself, Psalm 27, the Lord is my light and my...
Okay. Okay. So yes, I am a Christian and I do believe in the Lord Jesus Christ. Okay. But I'm not going to look down anyone who does not. Now we're going to get into the topic. Keisha, I don't know if you're able to join the panel. If you're able, you can do so. If you prefer, if you feel more comfortable or you're otherwise occupied, you go into your comments in the chat. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to get into the topic, which is how to resolve conflicts, and the reason behind that. We're all going to be involved in conflicts with one form or another. Oh, before I forget, the subscriber mode is on now. So therefore, anybody who is not a subscriber, if they wish to enter a comment, I'm going to ask that they please subscribe. It does not cost you anything to subscribe, but it does help my algorithm and it helps me to produce quality material. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share something that comes from Champlain College Online. Okay. And even though it has to do with conflict resolutions at work, I mean, it can be applicable to other situations. Okay. Although it's one of the most valuable skills you can have in today's professional world, conflict management is something that many individuals shy away from. Conflict is inherently uncomfortable for most of us in both personal and professional contexts, but learning to effectively handle conflicts in a productive, healthy way is essential, especially at work. This is especially true if you are in a leadership position. It's in your best interest and the best interest of your team to be able to effectively manage conflicts as they arise. Learning strategies to resolve conflict is an essential part of leadership. While conflict resolution is a skill that best built through years of practice and experience, starting out with some of the most common and effective conflict resolution strategies will give you a strong foundation to work from for years to come. Okay. The first strategy, don't ignore conflict. If someone who dislikes dealing with conflict, it might seem tempting just to put your head in the sand and pretend it doesn't exist, hoping it will resolve itself on its own. While sometimes can happen, the truth is that the vast majority of the time, this will only cause the situation to get worse. Ignored conflicts have a tendency to fester over time and reappear at inopportune moments. So, do your team a favor and address conflicts when they occur. Okay. And I see we have a guest. Um, just want to state that the views of those who appear on the panel. Okay, look like we did have a guest. Okay. So, anyone's trying, the link is there. So do your team a favor and address conflicts when they occur, nipping a potential toxic situation in the bud as soon as you recognize it. Okay. The second strategy, clarify what is the issue. If you're dealing with a conflict between two members of your team, it's important that you get all the facts. Sit down with each individual involved and find out exactly what the issue is, how each individual perceiving the situation, what needs are not being met, what does each party see as appropriate resolution. Make sure that all parties involved understand that you're acting as an impartial mediator and let them know that you can feel comfortable to share sensitive information. Okay. The third strategy, bring involved parties together to talk. Once you have a chance to talk with all involved parties separately, bring them together in a meeting so they can hash out their differences in a neutral environment. It is a time for brainstorming, active listening, and being open to different perspectives. The goal is to come to a common understanding of what the problem is, what role each individual is playing in the conflict, and what some possible solutions might be. Okay. Number 4, identify a solution. After both parties have had a chance to discuss the situation at hand, it's time to identify what is a satisfactory resolution might be and how to get there. Ideally, by this point, both parties will understand each other's side, and oftentimes conflicts will be resolved just through facilitate open dialogue. However, if the situation requires further resolution, you will need to step in and help them negotiate a reasonable solution. This phase can require some time and effort as it requires both parties to set aside their differences and preferences and to find common ground to work towards, which may involve not getting everything what they want in the situation. Then work with both individuals to come up with a concrete list of steps that will result in the solution being achieved. And number 5, continue to monitor and follow up on the conflict. Just because a solution has been identified and addressed doesn't mean it will go away. As a manager, it's your responsibility to check in with both parties to ensure that the conflict has truly been dealt with and that the steps identified to reach a solution are being followed. It all seems to be going very well. Simply remember to stop and observe from time to time, just to see if things really are going smoothly or there are still lingering tensions under the surface that needs to be handled. If it is clear that the solution didn't work or it wasn't the right solution for the situation, make sure to be proactive in working with both parties to readjust expectations, identify alternative solutions, and continue the dialogue to create positive and healthy work environment. Okay. I'm going to give you what is my point of view. Now, one thing I noticed in regarding with these strategies is number 1, you need to be impartial, okay? Meaning you cannot decide beforehand who is right and who is wrong. Also, you need to be a good listener and you need to pay close attention to what are the issues that the parties have. And you need to speak with each person individually. Okay. Then after you have had the opportunity to speak with each individual, uh, one by one. Then you bring both parties together, and then you try to come up with some steps to solve the problem, solve the conflict. Be mindful that not everyone is going to get everything what they hope for, but try to reach some sort of a consensus regarding a possible solution. And then once a possible solution has been achieved, um, you'll return and see whether the issues have truly been resolved or maybe the issues are still existing. Which that's the case, then what you need to do is have some more discussion, and then we look at the situation and come up with some possible solutions. Now, I see here not many people are watching this. It could be because maybe more people will catch it on the playback. Okay. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share another article which was written last week, September the 22nd of this year, um, which again deals with effective conflicts in the work environment. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on the steps needed and not read it. Okay. Number one, focus on the problem. People take conflicts seriously. In fact, 70% of the time, people take conflicts personally, even when they're specifically told not to. According to Stanford professor Lindra Greer, the takeaway: putting blame on someone for a workplace conflict is one of the fastest ways to keep the conflict going. To help resolve, focus on the problem. Instead of you take 3 days to respond to my emails, try I feel we have a problem with communication. Do you think so too? Approach discussion as a way to improve your work processes so that everyone can be more effective. You will come across as more reasonable and make it easier for others to come around to your point of view. Don't think about who's right. Okay. If you're directly involved in a conflict, it's easy to think that the path to resolution is to show that you're right and the other person is wrong. If you have a history of clashing with a particular colleague, this is especially an easy trap to fall into. But it won't get you anywhere. Approach any discussion from the standpoint of mutual respect. Try to understand where the other person is coming from and focus on solutions. You'll be more likely to reach insights that will benefit your whole team and your project. The next one is embrace conflict. When a conflict flares up in the workplace, the worst thing you can do is pretend it's not happening. Be productive and addressing it. Timing is everything. In general, it's best to address the conflict as soon as you can prevent it from getting worse. If tempers are running high, it may be prudent to allow a bit of time for everyone to simmer down. If you are directly involved, you can take your own emotional temperature to help guide you. But as soon as you can, talk about it. Okay, let me just take a look, see what's going on. Okay. All right. Okay, you know what? It's okay. Um, at any point, you can always enter your comments regarding the topic at hand. Okay, hopefully at some point you'll be able to get on. Okay. So the next thing to consider Make space to talk. In our hyper connected world, it's more challenging than ever to give our full attention to anything. It's tempting to think that you can resolve our workplace issues the same way you communicate about everything over email. Slack or Teams, but email or electronic messaging leaves a lot of room for misunderstanding, particularly when dealing with a sensitive issue. And if the issue had been dealt with flares up again, it would be all more frustrating for everyone. Set aside time to talk face to face. Invite your colleague to suggest a place and time to help get buy in. It won't be easy. Be prepared to show some vulnerability and check your immediate reactions in the interest of reaching a solution. If you're trying to work something out directly with a colleague, they may not bring the same oriented solutions mindset to the conversation. You can limit this risk by setting some goals at the onset of the conversation. I know our project has been delayed, and I'd like us to figure out some way that we can work more effectively. Okay. The next thing is offer validation. Whether you're directly involved in a conflict or mediating conflict between colleagues, listen to what they're saying without interruption. At an appropriate moment, repeat it back to them more or less in the same words. Suppose a colleague says, I've made a lot of suggestions for improving our program, but you're always rejecting. It's really frustrating. In an appropriate moment, you might reply, so what you're saying, you're frustrated because I always rejected your suggestions for our program. When you take the time to really listen and then say what you're hearing out loud, you're not just validating what your colleague is saying, you're demonstrating that you're listening, which makes it easier for them to open up and share how they're feeling with you. The simple conflict strategy can help you enhance your ability to work together to reach a solution. Now, the next one, sometimes it could be the hardest thing to do, but we need to do it at times. Admit when you're wrong. Nobody's perfect. Truly productive conversation exposes error where our processes aren't working well so that everyone can work better. That may require you to admit that you can done things better as well. From being more proactive with communication to considering feelings and setting expectations. Try to be open to admitting your own mistakes. If you made a mistake, own it. It may be uncomfortable and it may not be easy, but sharing what you could have done better and how you want to do things differently in the future makes it safe for others to do the same. When you do that, you also help build a culture of growth where mistakes are seen as opportunities to learn and move forward. The next step, yes, let's see if we can get those likes up, please. Okay. Um, the fact of the matter is, this is something that I think it's beneficial for all of us involved. I know I would consider it beneficial because I'm learning just like everybody else is. So the next step is seek solutions. It all happens during a conversation when people air their frustrations, you won't get very far. When you see shared perspective or points of agreement, highlight them. If you're having a disagreement related to work processes, you might say, well, it sounds like we both really want to deliver the best program we possibly can. Once you worked out a solution, communicate what you learned. Document the main takeaways from the meeting and the actions that everyone agreed to take to resolve the issue. By doing this, you have done something to refer back to the event in the event issues rise again. You can also help to build culture of growth that will positively impact everyone in the organization. Your turn. Healthy workplace teams handle conflicts in productive ways. They validate all team members' points of view. They create a space for everyone to be heard, and they work towards solutions together. All teams work better when they handle conflict positively. At HRDQ, we over. Okay, so what is my takeaway about all this? Um, First of all, we shouldn't be approaching it necessarily who's right and who's wrong. We need to understand that each party involved in the conflict has a point of view. And we need to, and I see here we also have a comment on MK Echo Chamber. Yes, please. Thank you very much for stopping by, MK. Okay. Now, my takeaway, a lot of the things are popping up, which is you don't come in with assumptions. You go in there with an open mind. You hear what each party has to say as it pertains to the conflict. Once you gather all the facts, you gather the parties involved. You act as a mediator, and then you try to come up with solutions that both parties can deal with. Excuse me. Just bear in mind that neither party is going to get everything that they want. However, when we both understand each one's perspective, we can come up with a solution where hopefully both parties can deal with. Okay. So what I'm gonna do, okay. Let's see. So let me just give you my perspective, okay? Because I've been involved in my share of conflicts, okay? And sometimes, excuse me, the conflicts can get very heated. And part of the problem that's heated is due to the fact that the perception where each party does not feel that their points of views are being validated or taken seriously. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share another article, and this came from an online source called Career Guide, and it's an article dated June the 22nd, 2022. Or actually, it was updated June 22nd, 2022, and it was published originally on December the 12th, 2019. Okay. Nearly every area of life sometimes requires implementing effective conflict resolution strategies. Conflicts are struggles that can arise during an active disagreement of opinions or interests. So it is important to understand how to navigate and resolve them. In the workplace, there are many instances which conflict can happen between co-workers. And when it does, it's important to resolve the issues before it escalates. In this article, we discuss 5 different types of conflict resolution and how we can use a conflict resolution in the workplace. And let me just say this: this can be applicable to any environment. While they're talking about in the workplace, it could be applicable at home. It could be applicable in school. It could be applicable with siblings. Now here is the definition of conflict resolution. Conflict resolution is a way for opposing parties to find a peaceful solution to their disagreement that leaves all parties reasonably satisfied. Sometimes the person who resolves a conflict may be a neutral party or mediator, while at other times there may be someone involved in the conflict who takes an outside perspective to find a solution. The ability to resolve conflicts is often seen as a leadership trait. People who can identify conflicts, acknowledge different opinions, and build a consensus are valuable to many organizations. They make it more likely for personal differences to be set aside so work can continue. Now, here are some of the most common reasons that conflict occur at work, and it can also occur in other areas. Different personalities or perspectives, unresolved problems from their past, feeling of competition with one another, poor communication skills, uncertainty about the roles or responsibilities. Now, the fact of the matter is, we all have this different personalities. Okay. Let's see. Okay, no problem. Okay, no problem. If you can't catch it, maybe you can't catch it on the playback. So, going back to um, so you do have different people. I mean, if you can get 10 people together and you get 10 people going to think 10 different ways, I mean, that's how we are. We're all different. And sometimes there could be unresolved issues. And when you do have unresolved issues, what happens is when there's a conflict, it makes it worse. And sometimes people feel like they're competing against each other. And sometimes people don't know how to express themselves very well. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the benefits of conflict resolution. The first one is building strong relationships. Effective conflict resolutions can serve to reduce any discontent that can damage working relationships, facilitate better collaboration between coworkers, and as a result, construct strong working relationship between employees. That could be also applied to when you have 2 or more people involved in a goal or a project, and then there's disagreement regarding how to achieve those goals. Number 2, maintaining morale. Resolving conflicts can effectively prevent tension between disagreeing employees from spreading to other employees not involved in the original conflict. A quick, amicable solution can help maintain peace and morale in the workplace and prevent disruptions in productivity. It's always better to try to resolve the issue and nip it in the bud. Of course, that does require that both parties wish to resolve the issue. If one party does not want to resolve the issue, it does make it very hard. Okay. Number three, achieving goals. Resolving conflicts can help opposing parties be more productive and help them move toward their goals. After a resolution, they can work more effectively and together, focusing on goals rather than the conflict. Um, when we all can be on the same page regarding a mission or a goal or a plan, um, we're more effective and we're more likely to achieve a positive result. Number four, reducing stress. Resolving conflict can reduce the stress levels of conflicting parties, their managers and colleagues and customers they interact with. Reducing stress is important for physical and mental well being. People with lower stress levels also find it easy to focus and engage with their roles. That has to do with being healthy mentally, emotionally, and physically. Okay. Number five, provides insight. Resolving conflicts provides the opportunity to understand a different point of view. Sometimes discussing the reasons why someone has a different perspective to your own can give you new insights. These insights can make you a more accepting person or help you to solve problems in new ways. And I see here we have the presence of the 18th letter. Good evening. Oh, before I forget, I have been negligent to state that Keisha has her channel, which is called Wine and FaceTime, and she goes live every Saturday at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And she does discuss a lot of issues. Last night she had an issue regarding as far as eating, as far as the holidays, and avoid some of the temptations that can occur. So I would suggest if you have an opportunity, if you have not done so, please subscribe to Wine and FaceTime and check out her latest stream. Also, the 18th letter has his own YouTube channel. So I'm going to ask that if you have not done so, please subscribe to these two individuals and check their material out. The link is in the chat if anyone wishes to join the panel. Okay. Also, you can also enter your further comments in the chat. So now we're going to talk about improving employee retention. Employees may be more likely to look for new jobs if they're experiencing conflict at work. Resolving conflict can encourage them to stay with the company. This is important for workplaces as it allows them to retain the skills and knowledge of their experienced employees. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to discuss some conflict resolution strategies. Okay. Hopefully, after this, other people will join the panel because right now I've been talking for about 45 minutes, and I don't have a problem talking, but I'm sure other people have a point of view, and I want to give them the opportunity to express themselves. So here are the strategies for conflict resolution. Number one, accommodating. This method of conflict resolution, also known as smoothing, involves one party acquiescing or giving the opposition party exactly what it needs to resolve the problem. In some cases, accommodating can be an appropriate resolution to conflict. For example, if your opinion on the matter is not very strong, it is easier to comply. This method allows you the chance to resolve a problem in the short term while working toward a long term solution. Some strategies might work, others may not work. Okay, number two, avoiding. This method involves simply ignoring the fact that there is a conflict. People tend to avoid conflict when they don't wish to engage in it. Avoiding allows them to ignore that there is a problem. There are situations which avoiding conflict can be an appropriate response, such as when there's no clear solution or a frustrated party needs time to calm down before confrontation. However, avoidance can require more effort than merely facing the problem and can cause friction between the disagreeing parties. Number three, compromising, also known as reconciling. Compromise seeks a mutual agreement to settle a dispute. Both parties willingly forfeit some of their conditions in the interest of reaching an agreement. This can be a quick way to resolve a conflict without becoming a bigger issue. Compromise can also be used as a temporary method to avoid conflict until the parties involved can implement a more permanent solution. It is appropriate to compromise when it would not be possible to make both sides completely happy while still moving forward. Number four, collaborating. Like the compromising method, collaboration involves working with the other party to find a mutual agreeable solution to a problem. For example, a salesperson and client may work together to negotiate contract terms until both parties find it agreeable. Interesting. Number five, competing. Competing is an uncooperative, overly assertive method used by people who insist on winning the dispute at all costs. This method is not often identified as bringing satisfactory solutions as it does not allow for collaborative problem solving. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to discuss how to use conflict resolution in the workplace. And to be perfectly honest, this could be applicable in other places as well. To avoid or resolve conflicts that could negatively influence your company's productivity, follow these steps to find the best solution possible. Now, I see here these items keep coming up, and it's no coincidence. Number one, don't ignore the conflict. No one enjoys conflict, so it may be tempting to pretend it doesn't exist or it was resolved on its own. While this is sometimes may happen, most often trying to ignore a problem causes the situation to worsen. Ignore conflicts over time and reappear at inopportune moments. As a manager, it's best to address conflicts when they occur to head up what might possibly a volatile situation. Defining the problem. Defining the cause of the conflict will help you to understand how the issue came to grow in the first place. You must get both parties to agree to what the issue is and discuss the needs that aren't being met on both sides. Ensure that you obtain as much information as possible on each side's outlook. Continuing asking questions until you're confident that all conflicted parties understand the issue, remain focused on the issues at hand, avoid personal emotions. During this discussion, talk through the problem professionally without attaching a particular person or a group. Which goes without saying that you need to be impartial. Excuse me, does that have an eating dinner song? I apologize. I'm just hungry. Number 3, meet on neutral ground. Clarifying a problem or discussing a resolution should be carried out in a safe, neutral environment to facilitate a positive outcome. Such a place also involves all parties to partake in honest communication. Do not choose an office on either party or location near the sim that may simply imply one side has more influence or power over the other side. Number 3, let everyone have a say. Now, before I get into this topic, this is very important, okay? Because one sure way to make a situation worse is when the parties involved are not allowed to express their point of views and what they perceive to be the main stickling points of an issue. And it also implies favoritism, which is the last thing that you want to do. After getting both parties to meet, let each one have the opportunity to express their views and perceptions regarding an issue. Give each side equal time to have their say. Embrace a positive approach in the meeting and necessary set ground rules. Encourage all involved to share their thoughts openly and honestly as well, comprehend the causes of the conflict, and identify solutions. It may be easier to interact if they understand a shared goal to meet company objectives. Number 4, agree on a solution. After listening to the concerns of both parties, take time to investigate the case. Do not prejudge or come up with a final verdict based on what you have. Dig deeper and find out more about the happenings, involve parties, the issues, and how people are feeling. Also try finding any underlying conflict of sources that may not be evident or noticeable at first. After visiting each possible option, determine which one will be the most favorable to everyone involved. Each party should provide an acknowledgement that the proposed solution is the best one at hand. Okay, which goes without saying that you do need input from both the parties, so they can come up with a consensus regarding a solution that all can accept, can deal with. Number 5, determine each side's role in the solution. At this point, both parties have had a say in negotiating a regional solution. However, for it to be effective, each party must feel the solution is just and fair. Ideally, both sides will now understand the other side, and oftentimes the conflict will resolve just through facilitated open dialogue. This step requires some time and effort as both parties work to set aside their differences and preferences to find a common ground to work towards a solution. Then work with both individuals, come up with a list of steps that will result in the solution being solved. Okay. Now I'm going to give you my take in all this. In all the articles that I shared, there's certain things that we see together, which is number 1. You must be neutral, okay? Neutral meaning you don't prejudge one person is right and the other person is wrong. Also, You need to get all the facts regarding um, an issue or the issues. Okay. Which means you allow each party involved to express themselves, what they perceive is the main sticking points to the issue. Once you hear that, you get all the facts that you need. You bring all the parties involved, and it needs to be done in a neutral environment. Why in a neutral environment? So that way, um, you're not perceived in favoring one or the other. Also, when you are impartial, they're more likely are going to listen to what you're going to say, and they're going to acknowledge the fact that you're being impartial, and that you're there to be a facilitator to come up with solutions. And then you come up with some strategies to resolve the issue, letting everyone know that they're not going to get everything that they ask for, but they're going to come up with solutions where all parties involved can accept and work together to resolve an issue. And of course, you need to follow up. Why do you need to follow up? First of all, you have to make sure that all parties involved are implementing the strategies or the decisions involved to resolve a conflict. Because if you do not have follow up, what can happen is the issues where the parties involved have dealt with, they not only with service, but other issues may come up. Now, as some of you may or may not know, I happen to be a union rep. Um, so whenever there is a conflict between a member and management, what I try to do is to gather all the facts. First, I will hear from the member regarding what the member might perceive is the bone of contention. What are their issues are, and if the conflict is with another member, after I get what are the issues with the first person, then I will go to the second person and I will get their perspective on what are the issues that person is dealing with. And then once we're able to gather all the information, then we can go to a neutral site and come up with possible solutions where both parties can deal with and accept. And then you have to follow up to make sure that each side is actually following up and each side is implementing the strategies and the steps needed to resolve the issue. And there is many benefits in successfully resolving conflicts. First of all, you're going to you look upon as a person that's fair and impartial. Number one. Number two, your peers are going to feel comfortable that if there is a conflict of some sort, that they can approach you knowing that you're going to hear from all parties involved and you're going to be a facilitator to help both parties or all parties involved reach a consensus for a decision or set of decisions when all parties involved can resolve. And you need to follow up again to make sure that the decisions are being implemented properly, correctly, and no party feels like they're being taken advantage of. One of the worst things that you can do is trying to resolve an issue is to be partial. Okay. And sometimes it could be a bit of a challenge, particularly if one of the parties involved in the conflict is someone that you care about, someone that you love, someone that you respected, someone that you admired. Because the assumption is going to be, well, that person's always right. While the truth of the matter is, there are times when one person's right, and there are times when one person is wrong. As I like to say, one person will have some truth, the other party will have some truth. However, when we both gather together, and in the middle is the truth. Now, I see here that I have been talking for almost an hour. So, what I'm going to do is, now I already set the order, put the link. So, if anyone wishes to express their point of view in the chat, they can do so. If anyone wishes to join the panel, they can do so as well. All I ask is the following. Let's be agreeable. Or maybe what you think what I'm saying doesn't make any sense. Or maybe you disagree with what I said, which is perfectly fine. If you happen to disagree with what's been said, you're more than welcome to join the panel and explain logically why what I have said was incorrect. And let's see if you can come up with solutions regarding this topic. I don't claim to know everything. I don't claim to be Mr. Know-it-all. All I'm just doing is sharing some information which I hope will be beneficial to all of you. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be discussing um, the upcoming streams for this week. Okay. Now, this coming Tuesday at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, I'm going to be talking about how COVID-19 has affected your life. Because the fact of the matter is, we've been through this. Well, it was originally a pandemic, then it became an endemic. No, I don't even know what to call it now. But the fact of the matter is, we've all been affected by this disease. And unfortunately, we have lost loved ones due to this disease. So we had to make adjustments in a post-COVID-19 world. And there have been those who have been able to adapt without a great deal of difficulty. And then there are those who have had issues. Unfortunately, there have been cases where there's been an increased uptake in self deletions. There's also been an uptake regarding domestic violence. There's also been an increase in mental health issues. Not to mention the fact that millions of people had lost their livelihoods and millions of people have been experiencing problems not paying their rent, not paying their mortgage. Also, other people have been fighting, struggling to get food on the table. So these are things that has affected us in during this health crisis, and also how we're going to be discussing how we can try to return life to some version of being normal. It's not going to be like what it was pre-pandemic, but what we can do is learn how to live with COVID-19, which means doing everything possible to reduce your exposure to C19. Now, again, I have never been a person to saying you have to be vaccinated. I've never been a person saying you don't have to be vaccinated. I believe that is an individual choice that you all will make. And I have said this before, and I'll say it again. Any concerns that you have regarding COVID 19, discuss it with your primary care physician. Uh, Ask your physician the pertinent questions needed. And then once you get your feedback from your physician, you decide the course of actions to take. If you decide to get vaccinated, fine. Please bear in mind that just because you're vaccinated does not mean that you will get that you won't get C19. What it does mean that if you get infected, hopefully, and I say hopefully, it won't be to the same extent. Um, Now, I just came across an article. It's saying, as of September the 7th of this year, it is now optional to wear a face covering in public transportation, meaning the subway and buses. Now, mind you, I'm not saying don't wear a mask. I'm not saying wear a mask. What I am saying, it is optional. That is what I'm saying. In other words, if you feel like wearing a mask, fine. If you don't feel like wearing a mask, that's also fine. Okay. So we're going to have that discussion this Tuesday at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 7 o'clock Central Standard Time, and 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. And then this Thursday, our discussion is going to be how to reduce stress in our lives. We all have to deal with stress from time to time. Now, truthfully speaking, sometimes we deal with stress because of stress over our own decisions that we have made regarding the poor choices that we have made. Okay. Other times we have to deal with stress because the situations regarding those situations which are beyond our control. Whether it be an illness, whether it be a death in a family, whether it be a change in your economic situation. we all deal with stress at one point or another. So what we're going to be doing on Thursday at 8:15 Eastern Standard Time, 7:15 p.m. Central Standard Time, and 5:15 Pacific Standard Time, we're going to be discussing that topic and how we can avoid the stress. Now, another topic which I will be discussing soon, and actually I just shared a little video on it earlier today, which is the spirit of unforgiveness. Now, what is that? What it is, it's a condition where a person that feels aggrieved or hurt over what a person said or what a person has done to such a degree when that person feels incapable of forgiving the other person. Now, when it comes to unforgiveness, what it does affect you mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, yes. Because when you're not able to forgive what the person has done, what happens is that person has now taken residency in your mind, and you're thinking about it day and night. You're thinking about what this person did, and you're thinking about how that what that person did was so terrible that you cannot forgive that person. And sometimes that person does not forgive you for whatever reason. Now, I have dealt with a situation where, whatever reason, people cannot forgive me for what I have done, and all anyone can do is put these dear people in prayer that at some point they'll be able to forgive those who hurt them, or even worse, forgive themselves. So what happens is when a person is unable to forgive themselves, maybe they hurt someone, and maybe they did acknowledge what they did is wrong, and they are taking the actions necessary to resolve those issues and to acknowledge remorse, and they've been accepted and they've been forgiven. But yet at the same time, they're not able to forgive themselves. And that could be a sickness. That could be an obsession. And what's happening is that guilt is taking residence in your mind. So I'm going to be having a discussion regarding the spirit of unforgiveness. When that's going to happen, I'm not too sure. There's a couple of things. I may do it this week, or I might do it next week. I will have to wait and see how things progress. But I will be discussing that issue regarding the inability to forgive others and the inability. And I see here we have a comment from cultural politics. Let's see what's being said. Could this generation forgive the whites for their mistakes during the colonial era, or there's come up things that can't be forgiven? I like to know. It could, you know what? It could be what they perceive as grievances that others have inflicted on them and that they perceive they cannot forgive them for their actions. So that is open to interpretation. I was not thinking in that concept, but it can be discussed. I was thinking more in the light like, let's say I did something, um, I offended somebody, okay, and that person felt aggrieved, and that person was felt deeply hurt, and I go to that person and I acknowledge that what I did was wrong, and I acknowledge the fact, okay, I acknowledge that I offended you in a grievous way, and I am prepared to take the steps necessary to heal that rift, and I apologize, I ask forgiveness, and I make a resolution not to repeat the same grievous act, but somehow that person will not forgive me. And not only does that person does not forgive me, but ends a friendship or relationship over that grievous act. Or it could be that I'm not able to forgive myself over a course of action that I did. Even though I made restitution, I have done penance, I have done what I needed to do to resolve the issue, and then I have taken steps or make a resolution not to repeat the same mistake, and I managed to avoid making the same mistake, and even still, I'm not able to forgive myself. So what's happening is that that guilt has taken up residence in my mind. So we're going to have a discussion in regards to that topic. Okay. And to be perfectly honest, I understand that for some people, that could be a difficult topic to discuss. And as always, uh, people are free to share their point of view if they wish. And if people do not wish to do so, they're not going to be obligated to do it because for some people, this is a very sensitive topic. So, that being said, it seems like no one else is going to enter a comment in the chat, and no one else is going to join the panel. Hopefully, other people will view the stream in the playback. I think moving forward, if I'm going to do a Sunday stream, I'm going to try to do it later in the evening. It's just that sometimes people are out on Sunday nights. So, with that being said, I do appreciate those who did enter their comments in the chat, which were Keisha, MK, and culturally politics. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end this stream. Um, I'm going to ask that please subscribe, like, and hit the bell notification to all. So therefore, whenever I do produce content, you will have the opportunity to either catch it live or catch it on the playback. So that being said, I'm gonna close the same way I always close. let us be good to one another and ourselves. So that being said, this has been another episode of Uncommon Sense with Jose Negron. I thank you very much, and I bid all of you a good night. Take care.